Hey, welcome to the Upland Nation podcast. I'm Scott Linden, your host. I hope you're having a great, what do we call it? Off season? I guess so. Training season, puppy season. We're going to talk about all of that and more. It's Beer 30 here in the inner sanctum of the Upland Nation podcast. My good friend, Ben Warner, hunting buddy, except not this season, and all-around good guy. We're going to talk about our seasons. We're going to talk about your seasons and all the comments you made about that, the highs, the lows, and everything in between, the lessons we've learned. It's all coming up right now on the Upland Nation podcast. We've also got the letter C, kind of like Sesame Street, from our Upland Nation Glossary. So if you want to learn more about, the things my English lit teacher said in high school, for that inevitable cocktail party where you want to sound smarter than you really are, it's time for the letter C in our Upland Nation Glossary. It's all made possible by RuffLand Performance Kennels, Sage and Breaker Gun Care Products, Pointer Shotguns, Dr. Tim's Natural Performance Dog Food, Mid-Valley Clays and Shooting School, and, listen up, audiocardio.com. Yeah, go there and figure out what I'm talking about. Before I get into Ben's discussion and my discussion, we got a lot to talk about because we didn't spend any time together in a truck this fall. A couple bits of news for you. First off, are you going to Pheasant Fest? If you are, it's March 11th to 13th in Omaha, one of my favorite cities. Don't ask me why. I'll be signing some very rare preview copies of the first paperback edition of my book. It's got a new title. It's the same book. If you already own it, don't buy another one. But if you don't own it, come on over to Pheasant Fest. I'll sign a few of those and hand them out. Yeah, I have to charge you for them because I have to buy them from the dang publisher. But I'll see you at Pheasant Fest in all of my sponsors' booths. So if you listen to this, you know who they are. I'll be in all of their booths, plus the Huron, South Dakota booth in the South Dakota Pavilion. All right, some news. Hey, if you live in Michigan, a new state game area is about to open up. It is along the St. Joseph River in Berrien and Buchanan townships. So next year, you'll be able to chase birds, among other things, over there. And the Oklahoma Wildlife Conservation Commission must have a hard-on for us out-of-state hunters. They decided they'd shorten our quail season when we go to visit Oklahoma. You know, and they have such a great public access program. It's relatively new. They got it figured out, and now they won't let us hunt it, at least for the last, let's see. Let me make sure I got it right. It'll be shortened by 2 weeks, the first 2 weeks of the season. Now, it's still got to be approved by the state legislature, so we'll see if the governor ultimately will sign it or not. But if you want to make your feelings known, now is the time. All right, we're brought to you in part by Sage and Breaker Gun Care Products, crafted at the highest caliber. Sign up for the mailing list. Get first notice of their sales and the new products that are coming down the road. And then, you think you know how to clean your gun? Watch some of the videos at sageandbreaker.com. Whether it's a Mossberg, a Browning, a Remington 870, they've got videos that will show you the right way to clean your product. And Legacy Sports is where you find the pointer shotguns that I'm using these days, legacysports.com. Their brand new catalog is available online. Take a look at their full line of shotguns, from semi-automatics to over and unders, youth guns, high-end to entry-level, target, field, and they all are available with that new cool Cerakote finish in 3 different colors. Yeah, I'm still waiting for mine, but eventually they'll get here, and then you'll see them on some of the videos I'm working on. Okay, without further ado, this is a guy who we met first at Big Dog Growler Phil's.
Oh,
remember that?
Yeah, I do remember that. Holy cow, that was a while ago.
I'm walking out. He's funny. Walking in. Ben Warner says, "Hey, aren't you?" And I said, "Yes, I am." I'll buy you a beer. And from there, we became hunting buddies, Facebook friends, and all sorts of other things. Welcome to the podcast, Benjamin Warner.
Thanks for having me, Scott. Glad to be here.
Yeah, and it's really kind of funny to sit here with the microphones in between us, because usually we're next to each other in a truck or we're walking along in some chukar country place, and we'll talk about all of that. But first, how was your season?
It was really good.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was. I had a lot of fun this season. I got to hunt behind a bunch of different dogs, a lot of different people, which is very different from like most of my previous seasons since I moved here to Oregon like 6.5 years ago. So yeah, it was a good change of pace.
You know, it's funny you brought up something. I'm just a music major. I don't understand that grammar stuff. You brought up something that I'm going to talk about when it comes to talking about my season. So I'll be a little selfish on that, and that's the people. But where'd you go this year? No latitude, no longitude, but generally speaking.
As far west as the Cascade Mountains and as far east as the Snake River.
That's a pretty small bailiwick. And overall, in 25 words or less, describe how your hunting season went.
Dang, I'm trying to count them in my head before I speak them.
Yeah.
But no, seriously, it was just a lot of fun running multiple dogs together, a lot of learning on my part, learning how to appreciate hunting out here in a different way with different people, and just new experiences, new places, new friends. Great times.
You know, you're like me in that, and that's actually how it worked with us. We were out there training dogs. We had a little group for a couple summers training dogs out behind my place, and I would share some of the spots where I went, and then you went to some of those, and you shared also, maybe not those particular places, but you were sharing with other people as well, taking people who maybe hadn't gone to those places or maybe hadn't gone hunting very often. Is that one of your goals?
Well, I'm not really too big into sharing spots because, for one, I think you rob people of their own satisfaction, especially with chukar hunting. It's really the ultimate adventure for upland bird hunters that they can do with a dog. I think besides that, the only other thing for an upland bird would be the Himalayan snowcock that you can only do in Nevada, and you can't really hunt a bird with that. But, notwithstanding that, I really think it's the chukar, and a lot of that is the wild country that they live in, and just, like I said, the adventure is such a big part of it that if you tell somebody, like, right where to go, I think you are robbing them of some of the joy. And when I first moved here, my first season, I think I spent about like 2.5 months trying to find my first chukar, and I had like a half a dozen different spots that I thought were chukar hunting spots, and I didn't get lucky at all. And then finally, like once the snow was finally pretty thick on the ground, I got some chukar, and I only found that spot from just doing a lot of internet research. And yeah, I just don't want to rob people of their own satisfaction. And I think if you force feed people spots, what that's going to do is it's going to really water down the whole experience, and easy come, easy go. And, I got it really easy, so I'm just going to share it with everybody else too. And then you're just not really doing, I don't think, the actual animal or the spot a service.
But you've taken people.
Yeah. And I mean, with the right person, I'll still maybe, share a couple of pins that that have worked out for me. If I can tell that the person has really been trying hard already, right? And they're just like, man, I've been out all season and it's December now and I haven't found a bird. I'm like, okay, here, you want your dog on a wild chukar, and maybe you want to shoot your first wild chukar, try this spot. And then usually what happens though, they're like, why don't I just go with you? And then I'm like, yeah, let's just go. So then that's usually just what happens. And It's
No,
pretty fun.
I get that. You certainly don't want to just spoon feed this stuff to people who aren't willing to work at it. But you hit the nail on the head, Ben. And that's something I remember from the old days when I was first learning how to fly fish. No, not when we used gut leaders and bamboo rods, but soon after that. I fished the whole first season I fly fished. I had no help.
Yeah.
I just failed every time I went. But yes, in failure, you learn. And there's a great cliche or two somewhere in there. But you do have to earn your birds, don't you?
Yeah, you sure do. And I also think that if you just tell somebody like where to go, they don't really understand like why the birds are where they are. And you're also going to hinder their own personal success in the long term.
Yeah.
So,
I want to talk a lot about something that you and I share, and that is a long and abiding passion for public ground and finding it. And granted, this is relevant whether you're a chukar hunter, a Hungarian partridge hunter, or a rough grouse hunter in Upper Michigan, for that matter. This land is your land. We own it, or we have access to it because we paid for it in one way or another. What do you do when you're looking for new places to go? How do you find a new public access spot?
well, I like to peruse the blogs that are online. I'm a member of different Facebook groups. I read the local news, and I use Onyx Maps. That works really good. But one thing that I did is about 7.5 years ago, I was still living in Tennessee, and all my private land spots that I hunted bobwhite quail on were changing hands. The actual like original landowner died, and then he was giving it to the kids, and they were in love with the bush hog, and they were cleaning it all up and subdividing it and building houses on it. And I'm like, the only place I have that's public land that has any quail is a certain place that borders both Kentucky and Tennessee that I have access to. And I'm like, my place, getting like 15 quail a year, that's like a good season in Tennessee. And just noticing how TWRA, all they care about is deer and turkey, and they don't care about the quail hunter. And then I've always just had a fascination for the West. I was like, okay, I got to get the heck out of here. It's too hot and humid for my big self anyways. And I'm from Wisconsin. What am I doing still living in the South? So I looked like what states out West have the most public land. And actually Oregon is like almost half public land. Nevada is like dang near all of it is public 80%. Land outside of like Las Vegas and like Reno. Like there's no people outside of those two cities. I mean, Nevada is actually pretty cool. So, although their limit for chukars only 6 when we can get 8. So,
but there are other ways to quantify your experience.
I know, I'm
going to share one of those with you in a minute.
Yeah. But so I was looking at Oregon, and then I also looked at Arizona because Arizona's got a pretty good upland game scene there and a lot of public access. I just knew that I needed to get west of the Rockies, and everything worked out, and here I still am. And I got in when the gin was good because I don't think I could move here now.
No, nobody can. In fact, everybody out there, do not move to Oregon. It's too expensive. There's too many Antifa guys in the.
We still have to wear masks.
Yeah, that's right. Although right about now, maybe we're getting out of that. All right, so you and I, we sit here, we do this every night. We look at our laptops and we just put on the Onyx Map app and we just chase around looking for good looking places, and we explore all this stuff. But do you have a method for any of that?
Yeah, I mean, first thing is I just do a lot of research online already to kind of help me figure out like the general areas. I look at the distribution maps, and then I look at major population centers, and I try to get away from all that stuff.
Yeah.
Because one thing I've learned is if you're going to get up at like 4 o'clock in the morning to drive like 3 hours why are you going to hunt someplace where everybody else hunts just for like some other truck to be there? And then you have to alter where you're at or where the birds are getting pressured all the time. And you can't get good dog work. And if you get a bird or two, you're like so lucky that you got that. I just try to want to go a little bit farther, behind the steering wheel and then also just get out. So looking at that and then just knowing about the terrain features and the water needs and the cover needs of the animal that I'm hunting, just look at that. So, it just depends, with chukar, I'm trying to get away from everything, but also my vehicle isn't the best that I have. Mm-hmm. So I also have to make sure that it's accessible enough. But with grouse, I like to hunt a lot where there's these wildlife management areas where they have like old roads that are usually gated.
Yeah.
And so you have to park and walk. And so I like those. And then you can really get back into where some of the cuts are. And then, use Onyx, use Google Earth for like grouse, seeing like where the cuts are. And mountain quail, that's what's cool about Oregon too, is you can get mountain quail and you can get blue grouse and rough grouse all on the same day. And that's pretty sweet.
It's funny.
Just don't come here and hunt it.
Every mountain quail I've killed has been in chukar country.
But yeah, there's a lot of mountain quail. They've done a really good job of reintroducing mountain quail where they were lost out in the chukar hills, and you can only get 2 a day. But man, they are a really neat bird.
Yeah, they are.
And being able to get like even just one while you're chukar hunting, I had a day this season where I was driving into a valley quail spot that I like, and I saw some mountain quail like on this little 2-track.
Oh, I know.
And then they flew up into the hill, and I've hunted chukar like up above where these mountain quail flew, and it was still pretty hot and warm. It was like October. I think it was October, early November. Anyways, it doesn't matter. It was hot and dry still. And I parked and went where those mountain quail were, and there was a lot more mountain quail than I thought there was going to be, and getting those 2 was pretty easy. Actually, Bernie did a really good job. I actually winged one, and it went into this little drainage that was just overgrown with these willow-type trees and bushes and stuff, and Bernie pointed it, and then I kicked around, couldn't get it to move, and then I told her to fetch, and then she went in, and I couldn't see the other side, but I could just hear her like chasing this mountain quail all the way down the hill through this thick brush, and this is steep as heck. Me to get up to where her point was, I was pretty muddy, and like my elbows were muddy, my hands were muddy. Mountain quail hunting can be kind of crazy depending on where they're at. It's funny because I found them on the road. I'm like, oh, it's going to be easy. But then I found that we got that one up on the hill a little bit, and it kind of flew up a little bit more in the hill. And then where I saw it land, I wasn't sure if I hit it or not, but I was like, man, it really felt like I hit that one. And it landed in that creek on the side of the hill where all that brush was. So I'm like, well, we better follow this up. And sure enough, I just broke its wing, but she did a really good job of chasing it down, bringing it back to me. Good job. And then we got up on top of the hill a little bit, and this hill is maybe only like 300 feet tall or something. Which for some of y'all in the flatland sounds like that's like the highest point in your state.
It's a mountain.
Yeah. Anyways, and she finds another covey, and she does a really good job pointing it, and like 6 go up, which is a pretty decent mountain quail covey, I suppose. And they're kind of spread out there. And bam, I shoot that one. And then she brings me that one. I'm like, oh, this is awesome. We just got 2 mountain quail. This is great. And they're both really nice, mature birds. And then I look at my Onyx maps. I'm looking at the topo on it. And I'm just trying to get back to my car without having to fall on my butt. And I'm like, oh, let's just go over here to where this drainage is, and we'll follow it down. And lo and behold, there's a big, like 20 or 30 bird covey valley quail in there. And I shot like 3. And then actually the third one in that little drainage, I watched right where it went down. Bernie did a good job pointing it. I watched right where it went down, and it's super thick brush right in there, super thick. And I see her go and grab it, and I'm up on this little like rock cliff that's maybe like 20 foot above all the brush, so I'm able to get some clean shooting. And I watch her grab it, and then I watch her try to start work. She works halfway through the brush, and then she gets stuck. And maybe I didn't feed her enough the night before, but that's where she ate her first quail, her first bird. And she ate that whole quail. And then she came back to me. Then she was able to find a detour after she ate that bird, came back to me, wagging her tail, happy as could be. And then I thought to myself, maybe I need to work on force fetch again.
I had one of those this year. I used a valley quail for a picture a couple times for a magazine assignment. And poor Flick, by the time he was done retrieving that thing 5 times, he really didn't want to give it back. And I'd felt pretty bad about having to press him as hard as I did because it was a crappy day for a bunch of reasons. So I finally just turned him loose with it, and he did the same thing.
Yeah, and I couldn't really. The one thing about Bernie is she something about quail. One time she squeezed one that was, I think, crippled, and the guts shot out of her butt. Right,
spare me.
and then she ate all that, and then ever since then,
yes.
If I don't kill it cleanly, if it's crippled or if it's shot up real good, it seems like she really wants to try to clamp down on them a little bit, which is just that's the problem with her and quail.
No doubt about it.
I don't know what it is. It's a little frustrating.
You said something earlier, and you and I together are the shining example of this. There's a spot, we were sitting on the tailgate 2 years ago, right over there, and I said, okay, you guys, this is a place that can stand a little more pressure. You should go to this spot. Go to that place, cross the bridge, go here and go up that and do that. And you did. And then we hunted. I'm so excited. I hit the microphone. And then we did it once or twice together. And every time we went, it starts with an R.
Uh-huh.
Every time we went a little bit deeper into that country.
Oh,
and
yeah.
then you went even deeper. And then you went even deeper than deeper.
Yeah, not this last season, but the season before.
Yeah. And
oh my gosh, well, it was awesome.
It was. And the lesson is go as far as your tires will allow you to go, isn't it? I bought Kevlar tires last season for that.
I went as far as to the top of a hill. And this was, 2 seasons ago in Oregon, we had a lot where it was freezing at night, but like in the 40s and the 50s, during the daytime, and full sun and some precipitation in October, November too, where those roads would be really muddy. So if you didn't get out of there by like noon or so and have really good tires and 4-wheel drive, you probably weren't going to get out, or you're just going to tear up the roads a whole lot. And I parked on a spot where I was looking down. I have to go down another road to get to where I really wanted to go. Go downhill that road. And I was like, there's no way I'm going to get back out on my way out, like at 1 or 2 o'clock, right? So I parked at the very top of this hill and like, you know what? Let me just look. I looked around. I look at Onyx. I'm like, there's enough elevation. There's some water over here. There's a reservoir right there. And I just hunted it, and it was amazing. I got Hungarian partridge, chukar. I don't think I got quail right there, but then I did hunt them the next day, a spot where I always was looking at this creek that fed into this bigger river, and I really liked the name of the creek, and I was like, maybe there's enough elevation difference here. Because I always thought that you needed to have like at least 500 feet of elevation. And you can quote me on the Up Chukar podcast episode from, was it last season when I was on there, where I talk about that, where this place, maybe there was 300, I think maybe only 200 feet of different elevation. But the key was, like, besides that creek that fed into that bigger river, it was straight up vertical cliffs for a lot of it, really inaccessible. And the difference in topography was probably about 1,000 foot at least, right? And so I think it just all depends on how the chukar can quickly get into the scape, and just the way the lay of the land is, and how much rock formations there are and whatnot. But it worked out really good. I hunted that, and that day I did get a nice mixed bag of Huns, chukar, and some valley quail. But again, back to this hunt where Bernie ate that quail. I wanted to finish that because that was a cool hunt. We got a couple of valley quail in the bag, and then I moved my car to the more traditional valley quail area. Some people call them California quail, whatever. And I hunted some of these other little creeks that were tributaries for this main creek, and got a bunch more valley quail and got a couple of snipe too. So that was a really nice day. Yeah. Worked out pretty good.
I gotta carry some non-lead shot, because I've bumped snipe at least 3 times in the past season. And
with this place, my dad shot snipe before, and every time I go there that time of year, I've found snipe, so I came prepared.
Love it.
And I mean, I bought a couple of boxes of steel for my roommate that thought he was going to bird hunt, but then never did. And so they've just been sitting around, and I knew that this would be a good hunt to try them on. I'm glad I did.
One question before the break, and that is, by the way, you're listening to the Upland Nation podcast. I'm Scott Linden, the host. That's my good friend, Ben Warner, hunting buddy, training buddy. He's headed for the NAVHDA Invitational test this year, so we'll talk a little bit about that in the coming segment. But first off, what was the absolute peak experience for your hunting season this year?
This is going to be kind of interesting, actually, because it doesn't involve Bernie. It involves my girlfriend's dog, Gravy, who we're just running her 2 dogs that they're right around 1 year old at the time. And we were hunting our way back. This is chukar country. And her dog, Gravy, just made an amazing find. It was just such a good, solid find for chukar, and a challenging find for a chukar dog, because what you had was you had a very flat kind of tabletop mesa or plateau, and then it was all rimmed with rock, rim rock, right, all the way around. And the rim rock was pretty it was like 10, 15 foot tall, except for just a couple little breaks in it. And we were headed for a break in a little horseshoe of the rim rock. And the way the wind was, the only way that a dog would find this covey of chukar that were tucked into that horseshoe was if the dog made a nice downwind cast. And we were actually hunting downwind at the time just to get back to Katie's truck. And he makes a downwind cast, and then he gets up along this wall of rim rock, and then he goes across the wind along the rim rock, and bam, points this covey of chukar that are tucked right in there about like 15 yards downhill from him. And I see that he just went on point. I hustle up and I get over there, and a nice covey of chukar get up, and bam, I shoot one, and then one right behind it, taking the same line, bam, I dump that one. And both Gravy and her dog Sky, the girl, both litter mates, make a retrieve on the dead birds. And it was really cool for me. It was memorable because watching those dogs just develop over the season was really awesome. And seeing Gravy that was a challenging find, and it was pretty brushy and rocky. I thought that was awesome. So for me, it was just kind of neat seeing that.
I love it. And you mentioned hunts a couple times, and I'm gonna tell you my highlight was much the same. It was a downwind cast, and then beep, the collar tells me flicks on point, and he's 300 yards up the canyon. So he went all the way out and then started working back into the wind.
Yeah,
slammed a point. We got up to it. We both had the luxury of getting into position. The birds got up on their own, but as if they'd gotten the memo, and one went right, one went left. We each shot a bird. Flick went out, picked up one, carried that one over to the other one, thought about bringing them both back, but decided he wasn't quite capable of a mouthful like that. Mm-hmm. So brought one back. I sent him straight for the other one. He did it. But, this was a season of downwind casts, and then the dog working back, and then basically pinching birds between the humans and the dog. It was, I can echo your feeling. It was that good. It was really cool. I got to tell you a couple other highlights that I had. First off, for the second season in a row, I hope I'm not jinxing it, we didn't have any pad issues. No pad issues at all. Someday I'll talk more about, in fact, that'd be a good podcast. All the things that we've done this past few seasons that paid off. Second, the year before last, 4 flat tires.
Yeah. I remember you talking about that.
This year, no flat tires. Woohoo! Now, I hunted fewer days this past season. I killed fewer birds in fewer states. You know, the record is 12 states in one season. That was a lot of license fees. Yeah. This year, 3 states, fewer birds, but more social interaction, quality, whatever you want to call that, great friendship, fellowship, whatever. And for some reason, the dog work. And that find that I just described to you was one of several on that trip with several friends, believe it or not, where afterwards we sat around that night and said, you know, all you need in a day is one good piece of dog work, and it makes the day.
Well, as long as that dog doesn't act like a total butthead 10 other times and run up, 10 coveys of birds,
yeah,
and you feel like you should have gotten like one out of each covey.
Yeah, good point. All right. Hey, we got a lot more to come on the Upland Nation podcast. That's Ben Warner. I'm Scott Linden. You're going to learn something from our Upland Glossary. We're on the letter C. I sound like Sesame Street, but that's okay. We're going to learn about your season out there. And while Ben pours me a little bit more of this, I will give a couple brief commercial messages, starting with audiocardio.com. Yeah, it sounds like what it is. It's a workout for your ears. If you have, maybe shot without ear protection a little bit too frequently, and haven't we all, there finally is a way for you to fix your ears. Now, it doesn't work for everybody, but it could work for you. The joy of it is there's a 14-day free trial, and if you want to choose to go beyond that, the subscription is only $8.33 a month for a 12-month subscription. That's right, it's an app. All you need is a set of earbuds and a cell phone. Watch the 2-minute video at audiocardio.com, and then when I do that, maybe you'll be able to hear it. audiocardio.com. Doug and Elisa and the crew at RuffLandKennels.com are doing their job. I told you about my new kennel from them. It's in the new cool standard color. It's called Millstone. It's kind of a gray, but I'm colorblind, so that's as far as I'll go. They've upgraded a lot of their equipment. What that means to you is they can add stuff to the basic kennel and accessories. Yeah, if you have some of their other products, don't worry, it'll all integrate. But with the new molds they've got now, you can put a few new accessories on top, next to, and connected to your new RuffLand kennel, including every model now comes with handles. A little bit easier to carry, a little bit easier to move around in the truck. Learn more about all the new stuff at RuffLandKennels.com. Thanks for pouring, Ben.
My pleasure.
Cheers.
Prost.
Yes. In fact, I had a Guatemalan friend last night ask me, how do the Germans say cheers? And I said, Skol. And then I should have said, Ein Prosit, which is a great song that we used to play when I was a musician, but that's another story.
In the polka band.
Oh, God, every polka band. Wow. Well, that's what got me to Bend, Oregon.
Whatever it takes.
Yeah. So we're talking chukars, public access. We're talking puppies in a moment. But before we debrief further on our seasons, a few comments from some of you that I asked on Facebook a couple weeks ago, or maybe more. I've been in California. Don't blame me. I asked you, what was the highlight of your season? Dennis Milani says, hunting rough grouse in northern Ontario with my short hairs, my son, brother, and cousin. Birds, dogs, family. It doesn't get any better. Michael Augello forgive me, I think it's Augello. The blind retrieve Archie made on a woodcock that went down in the water. He brought it to hand. He was yelling with it. You ever yelled, Ben Warner? You ever yelled with excitement when your dog did something like that?
Yeah, I'm super expressive.
Really?
Pretty loud too. Yeah. Yeah.
I am too anymore. It's easy to get me excited anymore. I'm sorry. I apologize, dear Lord. I apologize. But life is good in so many ways. So finally, David Laurie says, the last shot I made on a rooster this year, my son said it's the best shot he's ever seen. There's a line I never hear. The dog was on it as it hit the ground. Well, good on all of you there, and way to go, David, for bringing your son along, too. Ben Warner, hunting buddy and friend, training buddy. What are your goals for this training season?
Well, it is to make sure that Bernie not only meets but exceeds the standard so she can pass her invitational in September when we travel down to Albuquerque, New Mexico, to make sure I don't take a left.
I can't wait.
I get there.
I'm looking for an excuse, and I might have found one for being down there. A little early in the year for that place, but that's all right.
Yeah, it's going to be hot.
Yes, it is. So plan for that. But if you're not a NAVHDA member, basically the North American Versatile Hunting Dog Association has a testing system that ends with that. I shouldn't say that progresses to what we call the utility test, and you pass the utility test, and then you're invited to go to the next level.
You got to be a prize one.
Prize one utility test. Thank you. There's a prize one, prize two, prize three. Thank you. See, I'll never reach it. So
don't say that.
And Ben and Bernie arrived there, and now they are planning to be at the invitational test, which I've been to. In fact, go to my YouTube page and watch the invitational. It's on there. We were in, where the heck were we for that? Ohio.
I think Ohio, yeah, with the English setter.
Yeah.
Watched it twice.
Yeah, we slept in Pennsylvania. Uh-huh. We landed in some other state, and we filmed in Ohio. It was the craziest shoot I've ever been on.
I'm going to make sure I bring my olive drab shorts to wear.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. And so anyway, I know I've congratulated you on this because we talked that very night when you passed, at least by text. But it's a spectacular test and an achievement to be invited. Tell me, what were the most important aspects of training Bernie for that test? By the way, Bernie is a liver, all brown German short hair. Go ahead and tell me what that was all about.
Well, I think first off, you got to make sure you start with the good genetics. She's my second German short hair that I've had, and the third German short hair that I've had been able to spend a lot of time with, including my dad's. But I believe, and I noticed right away as a puppy, that she was the first one that I could tell she had potential to do really good in the NAVHDA system. She's just got a really good off switch, but she's got a big motor when she's hunting. And I think finding both in a single dog is really hard to do. And although maybe she's whining right now in the background a little bit, she's actually pretty quiet.
Yeah.
And from a young age, I was able to get her to stay in a certain spot and then move out of sight. And I think that can be really challenging for a lot of dogs. And just, it seemed like she just picked up on a lot of just little things that I did from a young age, like sitting while I, got her food ready, have her stay while I opened up the door and waited for me to go through first. All that stuff that they talk about that makes a difference. Well, guess what? It actually really makes a difference in building a foundation for your dog to understand that it's supposed to be obedient. And then also, the more obedient it is, the more joy it's going to have in its life. And it's going to be able to do cooler things. And just being wild is not the way to go. But I just noticed Bernie just had a lot of potential, and I just thought, you know what? I'm going to run her in the NAVHDA system. And what's funny about this is we kind of skipped over her natural ability test, but I ran her at 5 months, 2 days old, and she was really good at pointing the wild quail in my yard and the mourning doves in my yard here in Central Oregon, like the high desert, where she's never seen a blade of green grass taller than like 3 inches. I ran her in the June test in Baker City, Oregon. And there was a field of grass that was like 2 feet tall. It was all green.
I know.
And she never smelled a pen raised chukar before. And when they had to put down a bird for her because she just was not smelling these birds. And they put one down for her, and like I worked her into it, and she pointed it, but you could tell that she wasn't too sure about like if she was supposed to point this bird. And I got my foot under it, and I kicked it up into the air like an idiot.
No, I think that was smart.
And when I did that, she yelped and took 2 steps back.
Oh,
yeah. Well, there you go. 0 for pointing in the field. And then she did get like a little bit of credit on she did a really good job on the pheasant track. And then she did amazing in the water. I swear to God, she's half otter or seal. But yeah, she failed the NA, and I wasn't going to retest her just because of my own scheduling commitments that I had, and how I wasn't going to go to California or Utah for the test that I could make, for natural ability. So I guess what I'm saying is, I mean, she had the genetic potential there, and I wasn't really the best trainer from the get-go, but also trying to find the birds, the pen-raised birds can make a difference. And then a lot of it, though, for her success in the utility test was her first season. I hunted her a lot on wild birds.
Yeah.
A lot.
Yeah. And you got into wild birds.
And we got into a lot of wild birds.
Around
No.
in public ground. It's
so by then
wild birds.
So she's 4 years old now, and this was my 7th season. So with Callie, my old one, that's no longer with us. May she rest in peace. I already had 3 good seasons with Callie, and I already knew where the birds were. So every trip that I went on with Bernie, we got into birds, and Bernie was pointing birds. I mean, we got a limit of Hungarian partridge, 8 Hungarian partridge, when Bernie was barely a year old, her first season.
Wow.
Yeah. So she definitely had the goods. So then we just trained a lot that following year, that following training season, knowing that I was going to take her to the utility after that next season. And then I took her to that utility in June, and, she got a prize one, 204, and that worked out pretty good. Yep. And then also I did the force fetch with her.
Yeah.
So obviously she ate a quail. Maybe I need to revisit it.
It's funny. I wrote in my book years ago that dogs understand. I think they really do understand fairness. And when they eat a quail, I think they've decided, well, I did all that stuff for him. It's about time he did something for me.
Yeah. And that's why, I actually laughed, and I didn't mind it, because that whole season for her utility test, that off season, I mean, I shot so many dead birds for her. Or I'm sorry, I shot so many birds for her, and she had to retrieve so many quickly, no prancing, to display it properly, all that stuff. I was just like, you know what? That was so much pressure for this dog that one bird that she eats, whatever, it's not a big deal. And it wasn't a big deal.
I agree. I want to take a minute here and share a couple other thoughts from other folks who listen, who had great seasons as well. Kevin Butler says his daughter shot her first double. She shot 4 birds on the weekend. Good for her and good for you, Kevin. Jay Lawners says, I had an Iowa pheasant hunt when both my dogs honored a buddy of mine's dog on point. It was great. Well, let's see. 1, 2. That's 3 dogs standing still. I don't think we experienced that this afternoon when we were out there with our dogs, did we? No, they didn't stand still, but they weren't asked to either. And then he added a rooster to the count. And finally, Eric. Hey, Eric Thompson, how the hell are you, by the way? We miss you out here. He said he was driving by the sign I remember that trip. You called me and asked for a recommendation on a craft brewery. Eric was driving by the sign that read, "You are now entering grizzly bear territory. Hunt at your own risk." 2 separate signs, 2 separate locations. I'll never forget this one. The first time I was ever in Montana, I just started writing for Outdoor Life and Field and Stream, and I'd read a story in Field and Stream about some poor schmo whose short hair went into the willows in some prairie country out in Montana, and the short hair comes out running faster than that guy'd ever seen because it was being chased by a grizzly. The grizzly came straight for the guy. He shouldered his shotgun. It had birdshot in it. He pulled both triggers, killed the bear, but the bear landed on him, bent the barrel of the gun. I remembered that story so vividly. I was walking around in a prairie creek bottom in Montana when I put 2 and 2 together and realized it was the same damn creek bottom. We went somewhere
Well, that
else.
grizzly's dead now, Scott, so you have nothing to fear.
Yeah, really.
He killed it.
Right. If only that's how it worked. So lucky for you, Eric. Glad to see you're back in one piece. And I do expect a debrief any moment now from you. Ben Warner is joining me here at the Upland Nation podcast. I'm Scott Linden. We are having such a great time because I don't think we've seen each other since a training day last
Yeah, this is our first time since August.
So it's good to have you in the house again, and all is well. You've got a new addition in your household, though.
Yes, sir, I sure do.
Tell me all about. By the way, and welcome to the cult.
Yeah, thank you. The the wild hair cult.
Yeah.
German wire hair pointer cult. Wow.
I like that. I'm going to call them wild hairs from now. Yeah. So how's Daisy doing?
Daisy's doing really good. She was quite a handful for the first month or so. And, just patience and persistence and consistency. Now she's 4 months old. Yeah, 16 weeks old now this week. She's doing really good. And she's learning. Amazing genetics. I got her from Bone Point Kennels. Yeah. Kelly does a really good job with his dogs. Actually, the 2 1-year-old dogs that I hunted behind a lot this season were both dogs out of Kelly breeding. His sire to a female from Holden Point Kennels. And I already knew about Bone Point, and I already was thinking that if I ever went the wire hair way, that he was going to be way up there towards the top as a decision. And just seeing my girlfriend's dogs hunt, and then her old dog that's 13 years old, still get around really good conformation, good desire, good attitudes, friendliness, like everything you want in a dog, really, except maybe for all the energy for some people, but I like it.
Yeah.
I was able to get in on a litter, and it's working out now.
Well, she looks good. She's well conformed. She moves well. I just met her, everybody, not an hour ago, and she's got grace and style in her movement. She's just still learning how to run, as some trainers call it. But for a 16-week-old, she's got all the potential there. And by the way, those other 2 1-year-olds do as well. They are very graceful out there. So it's going to be interesting to watch all of them mature a little bit. And then you can't help but hold a 16-week-old up to a 1-year-old and start kind of trying to draw comparisons. Yeah. And I won't ask you to do that because it's not fair, but it is interesting to have all of the raw materials for an experiment under one roof once in a while. So good on you.
Thanks.
You moved out here from way far away. Is that when you thought, well, what am I going to shoot at? Or did you say, they got lots of chukars out there. Maybe I'll choose that place?
Well, I always liked it out west, and I liked the big open country. Anytime I got a chance to go out west for work, or when I was in the Boy Scouts and we go to like Philmont or whatever, back when that was a thing. Yeah. That just really got me thinking that out west is where I needed to be. And seeing Oregon just had a lot of different variety in game birds. I really liked that. You know, living in Wisconsin, the only real wild birds they have is ruffed grouse. And, you know, I like being able to kind of have a view with my hunt and not just dodging tree branches the whole time. But also, like, you know, just going to South Dakota for pheasants, like, I don't know. And then in Tennessee, like bobwhite, and then maybe when the woodcock come through, like you're doing that, and maybe some ducks if you can get on some of the lakes there. I just like, or I like the Oregon. Jealous. I like the variety, and yeah, it's nice out here.
No, I agree, and I'm also jealous. I hope that I'm saying this correctly, but I think you promised to show me a ruffed grouse spot sometime.
I did.
You know, we live here on the freaking high desert.
That was before I met you.
I know.
I think I commented on like one of your YouTube videos, like, "Hey, if you ever want to go ruffed grouse hunting, I got a decent spot not too far."
So we're not known for ruffed grouse hunting out here, but there are some. It's just like valley quail. You know, not valley quail, mountain quail. You know, every mountain quail I've ever shot has been in chukar and valley quail country. And in fact, at least 4 and maybe more of those birds were hanging with valley quail. You ever seen that?
No, that I haven't seen yet. But I have noticed, though, that I'm finding more and more mountain quail where the chukar are. And I know the state of Oregon has done a pretty good job of reintroducing mountain quail east of the Cascades. So I think they're doing a good job with that.
I'm going to tell another story about you and me and another friend of ours who's done us a solid together once, actually. But the precipitation for this is Huns in chukar country. Okay, I'm taking a poll. Did you see more of that in the last couple seasons than you've ever seen? I know that's a loaded question.
This year, I didn't really see as many Huns in chukar country.
Yeah.
But I also hunted a lot of spots this year that I never hunted before.
Okay.
So it's hard for me to speak to that. Although, it reminds me that same day where I got those mountain quail and those valley quail and those snipe on the same day, Bernie and I found Huns right near the water in an area where there's supposed to be no Huns.
This is what I have seen 8 times in the last 2 seasons. No, never. The biologists think I'm hallucinating.
I know. We talked about this.
Yes, but it happens.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I want to give a shout out to Mark Avolio, our mutual friend, because on one of probably now I think about the first hunt we did together over in that place we were talking about, we split up. I shot Huns in a place you'd never guess would have Huns. High desert, ugly, rocky, scabby country, lots of sagebrush, lots of dirt, nothing else. There's no crops, no grass, no nothing. But I got shots at Hungarian partridge in 3 or 4 different places. You were off on the other end. I think you killed a couple quail, maybe more than a couple quails.
No, a bunch.
And then maybe a few chukars.
Yeah.
I got back to the truck first. The truck was parked at a little pond. Remember that pretty little pond? What a nice little setting that was. It even had a picnic table.
I know.
Who dragged that picnic table all the way up there?
Whoever lived in that little shelter.
You're right. That's
Just kidding.
It was like a sheep herder's
from like the
stone
1800s.
dugout or something. But it was so cool. I'll try and put a picture up. I remember that. But so I'm sitting there drinking a beer and I hear this truck laboring up this hill, because that was an ugly hill, especially if you didn't have Kevlar tires at the time. And it's coming up, and it looks like mine. I'm thinking, wow, what the? Oh, I had 2 beers, and I'm already thinking that's my truck. And I'm anyway. It pulls up right next to mine, so I know it's not mine. It's somebody else's. You get out of one side, and you say, "Hey, I was walking up the hill, and this guy gave me a ride." And I said, "Okay, hey, welcome." And it's Mark Avolio.
Yeah, my goal is to get a lift from somebody at least one time every season back to my car.
So
I've been doing pretty good with that goal.
So what you told me, check me on this, is that you're walking basically down the road. What suffices for a road out there in that country. This is, by the way, the darkest place in the lower 48. You know that. The New York Times says it's the farthest you can be from a hospital and a Starbucks. Now, I don't know which is worse, but that's where we are. You said, yeah, I'm walking down the road. This guy pulls up. He says, well, are you lost? No. Are you tired? Hell yes. Can I give you a lift? Yeah, sure. I'm going up that hill over there to meet my buddy. We were hunting together, Scott Linden, and Mark says, I know that guy.
Yeah.
So you pull up. I've never met him in my life.
I used your name so he would trust me enough to allow me to get in his truck so I don't have to walk the other 4 miles back to where the pond and you were.
Oh, we had a good time. We spent much of the afternoon next to the pond and enjoying ourselves. Let's just leave it at that.
Yeah, it was fun.
Oh, my God. So anyway, thank you, Mark, for giving Ben a lift because he might still be out there, or at least his bleached bones might still be out there.
But yeah, it's funny, though, when Bernie was getting birdie and then those Huns got up on the other side of this brushy creek bottom that she was working, I didn't shoot because, well, I shot after like the 10th one got up in a covey of 20.
Wow.
And they were on the verge of being out of range because I just couldn't believe that there were Huns where I was.
Yeah.
And then I watched where they went down, and then Bernie just made an amazing find, finding them. She got on the right side of the wind, and then they got up all around me, and I was able to shoot one. Dang near shot its wing and head off. I shot one wing off, just got the head off of it, and I probably should have shot a double, but that's okay. And then I didn't even worry about where they went. Yeah. And I was like, you know what? These guys are not where they usually are. Yeah, whatever. This was a really nice bonus.
That
was a great day.
I mean, like I said, for the last 2 seasons, they've just surprised the heck out of me. Yeah.
I like how adaptable they are. They're an amazing bird.
They are.
I think really, I mean, I go back and forth whether or not I prefer chukar or Huns. The thing about Huns is, man, they make your dog look so good when they're on point.
I agree.
And I really like how quickly they get up and out of there. And just the wing shooting, you never know which direction they're going to go. And they go from 0 to their top speed, 40 miles an hour or whatever's on the wing, like in a heartbeat. I don't think any bird gets up faster, and they will fly uphill that same speed that they'll fly downhill. Where a chukar, if you get below them and they fly, they're going to fly around you. And if they do have to fly over your head or, like uphill a little bit, it's a much easier shot than it is with a Hun. And I appreciate the Hun. And I like the flavor of the Hun a little bit more than chukar because it's a little bit darker.
Yeah.
And you can actually taste it a little bit more.
No, I can't argue that. I've shot Huns.
It's more complex.
In 4 states.
Yeah.
I love them for all sorts of reasons. I hate them because they're kind of in between quail and chukar size.
Yeah.
So your head is totally bedazzled. You can't tell how far away they are.
Oh, especially if you shoot one-eyed close.
Yeah.
Or like with you, because you're cross-eyed dominant, you have to shade your left eye.
Yeah.
And that messes up your depth perception. I can see that being hard.
Yeah. The other thing is, I'll echo that. I shot some Huns in Montana. This has been 8 or 10 years ago on a TV shoot. I couldn't clean them or dress them out until I got to South Dakota.
Right, I remember the story.
Like 4 or 5 days.
Yeah, they
were on ice the whole time.
Right.
I gave them to the guys because I had some guys who were doing that for me over there, and I brought them home frozen, and they were the best birds I ever ate.
Yeah, I believe it.
Yeah. And part of it was they hung, if you will, for 4 or 5 days.
Yeah.
But part of it was because they were Hungarian partridge as well. But you mentioned something, and I mentioned it too with Mark. And by the way, Mark, thank you. I'm sorry we couldn't pull together that last trip this season, but you owe me one on the record. No, I probably owe you 3 or 4. But
yeah, Mark takes you to private ranches to hunt, Scott.
Yes, he
you owe
does.
him.
Yes, and then we see herds of 100 elk.
Yeah, man, that's awesome.
Yes,
It's always a good hunt when you get to see elk
I agree.
or a really big mule deer buck.
That I haven't for a while.
And then you got to keep your mouth shut, though. Don't tell anybody.
Exactly.
Let that
It's
guy
not like it matters to
live
me.
long and prosper.
Yes, but that brings up one of the points that I made earlier, and that is this was a season for social peaks. You know, we all have something in common. We all love to talk about it, but beyond that, the way that all comes together, and I'll tell a story, but you tell a story first. You mentioned the same thing. What was it about you with other people this season that was just so cool?
I think what it was just seeing other people enjoy bird hunting, but also their own take on what they enjoyed about it. You know, I feel like the season before this last one, just coming clean, knowing that Bernie, this was her 4th season, 2 seasons ago, that I had a goal of how many chukar I wanted to bag that I thought would just be, if I could bag that many, that'd be a really neat goal. And you know, it'd be, I feel like I like to, I'm a bit of a achiever when it comes to like making goals and wanting to achieve them. And just that would really keep me on track with chukar. But I also wanted to do it by exploring as many places as I could and not hunt another spot. Like, you know, you and I were kind of on that same kick a couple of seasons ago, like not hunting the same spot twice. And I didn't hunt the same like hillside or covey twice.
Yeah.
And what's amazing is I got that number with Bernie. We exceeded it. And I really liked that added pressure that it took. My shooting was better than it ever was. Just she and I hunted with a couple other people, but not very often. And just the sole focus of being able to do that and still care about the resource by hunting different areas. And there was enough birds 2 seasons ago to warrant that, made it all worth it. And I feel like it all worked out perfectly because, you know, then I met my girlfriend and then, you know, the whole social thing happened. And it's just been neat, like just getting out with other people, getting out, taking her mom and sister and niece out. And we did an awesome quail hunt. And we stayed at some hot springs, you know, so we did the hot spring thing in the morning and at night.
I know those hot springs. Yeah. And I want to know where that quail hunt was.
I'm not telling you. And it was just awesome. And just being able to just see the joy on other people's faces and the mystique that we take for granted, you know. And I think after 2 seasons ago, just Bernie and I, it almost became like, oh, there she is on point. I'm going to hustle up and get there. Bam, I'm going to shoot a bird or two. Okay, now we go to there Bernie goes 500 yards away. She's about to go on point. Bam, there she is on point. You know, I'm looking at my GPS where I can see her way up on the horizon. I hurry up and I get there. Make sure I get below the birds. Bam, they flush around me. I shoot one, I shoot two, on to the next one, right? Like it's almost like I was harvesting, right?
Yes.
And like the enjoyment was like, oh yeah, I got this goal and this is awesome. And there's a lot of birds here and the challenge, right? But I really didn't share with very many people, like in real life.
Yeah.
I had a heck of a lot more social media posts then.
Yeah.
But this last season, like I had no need to post anything about what I was doing because I was sharing with other people and enjoying real life. And I just feel like it was fulfilling. My freezer, I think, is dang near just as full as it was the season before. And I have no idea how many birds I shot this last season. I know exactly how many birds I shot the season before. And I don't even care to count because my cup is overflowing with what I had happen this season. And yeah, I had some challenging moments, you know, where Bernie would go on point and another dog would totally blow up the covey. And early on, that was pretty challenging.
None of those were my dogs.
No. You know, but by the end of the season, there was one, the closing weekend, Bernie found a covey perfectly up on the top, right where we were parked. And I was like 10 yards from where the covey got up. And a dog, that shall remain nameless, like just came in, and he was like the Superfly Snuka off of the top ropes, like just flying into this covey of chukar, and I see him just like Superman into this covey as all like 20 some birds get up, and I shoot twice and don't draw a feather because I just was like in shock and awe of what I just witnessed, and I didn't even get mad, and I don't know, like. Yeah, I think Bernie's a little bit more steppy now than she was in the beginning of the season.
Yeah.
Because she's had coveys get blown up by their dogs in front of her. But I think with pen-raised birds, she's going to be fine. And I just had to kind of get over myself a little bit. And I think I'm a better person for it. And
I'm excited about all of that, particularly the fact that you don't know how many birds you killed this year. I love that. Because it's about so many other things, and it's so true. I had an experience. I think I've related this, but I'm not sure. So I was going to go. I was invited by a podcast listener to join him in a town 4 hours away that he knows some country out there, all public access. He knows it really well. He said, let me show you some of those spots. And the year before we'd gone out, we'd seen some spots. We had a great time. This year he said the same thing. And I said, okay, great. So the only place to park a travel trailer is at the fairgrounds right in town. Mm-hmm. Which, by the way, if you have a travel trailer and you're looking for places, always check out the fairgrounds.
Right.
So I said, well, I'll be there. I know you'll be at the one motel in town because you got the only room left. And so I said, all right, we'll meet at my trailer, and that'll be on the way out. So we did. And so the first morning he shows up. We have a cup of coffee. While we're waiting, our friend Mark Avolio shows up.
That guy's everywhere.
He says, I thought I recognized that trailer, and I was driving by on the way to my hunting spot.
Yeah.
So we had coffee together, and he went his way, we went our way. Next morning, same thing. Maybe he likes my coffee. I don't know. Mm-hmm. I doubt it.
You make good coffee.
Thank you. Yeah, you would know. Yeah, you've been in that trailer. So that morning, Mark says, "Where are you guys going today?" I said, "Well, we're going." Felton says, "We're going over there," and Mark says, "Well, I got some private ground right over there. You want to try it?" We said. We looked at each other. Sure. Yeah. So we went with Mark that day. And then the next day, Mark and I went together on our planned one-day hunt. Mm-hmm. But we had a wonderful time. And part of it was just because there was some happenstance. There was some serendipity. There was a little bit of kismet, if you remember those words. Those are the kind of things that happened all season.
Yeah.
Over there southeast where I go a lot.
Right.
Over there at that other place where we've gone. Mm-hmm. If you open up a little bit, if you just keep your options open, interesting things happen.
I have a question though.
Yeah.
How much of a difference is public versus private land hunting for chukar out in the West?
Vast.
Is it really?
I think so.
The birds are just a lot more.
I don't know if it's always true, but I think that the less pressure, the more birds. I think anybody would.
I think
would
it's just like
that.
People that are retired or are able to have a different schedule where they're able to get out during the middle of the week.
Yes.
I think just that day or two difference, because I notice like Thanksgiving Day. Since I don't have any family out here, I'm going to go hunting.
For the record, you were invited to my house.
Yeah, that's true. Okay. I was. All right. It's something about being able to get out in the middle of the week can make a big difference on public birds. But also, I think, you're highlighting like the value of private land, but I think people can get that experience on public land just if they take a little bit more. They take the off season a little bit more serious. And just make sure that they're in a good enough shape to be able to go a little bit farther than the next guy would. I feel like side-by-sides are really starting to kind of be a detriment to chukar hunting especially. And if you can focus on where side-by-sides can go by looking at maps and hitting those spots that look like they're going to be good chukar hunting spots that you're going to do really well. And I think a big thing, like for me, is my fitness level definitely decreased this last year than it was the year before, where I was fitter than I've been in a while. And I just noticed that when I would hunt the spots that were super vertical with a lot of birds, it just took me that much longer to get to Bernie's points. And by then the birds would move a little bit more,
Yes.
which then required Bernie as a wild bird dog to like relocate like one or two too many times. And then the birds would finally take off, or maybe she just wasn't able to handle standing still for 15 minutes because it's 20 degrees out and she's in snow and she's a short hair and she's like, dang, my feet are freezing.
Yeah.
I need to move again.
No.
So I think all that makes a difference. But I think if you're able to hunt effectively areas that a lot of people won't hunt, you'll be able to really get into some good bird numbers and birds that behave well. And just that little extra can really go a long ways, I think, with bird hunting. And I don't care, if you're in Wisconsin or Michigan or, Georgia, the Dakotas, just find those spots and try to hunt like the backsides where the parking lot isn't. Like, if you're in the South Dakota thing, that can really make a big difference.
You just summed it all up, and I'm just going to add some icing onto your cake. By the way, you baked it perfectly well.
Thank you.
When I moved to this town, I started a business newspaper, and I interviewed all the big shots in town. One of the big shots was a realtor who had a big agency, and he was dominating the market. And I interviewed him, and he said, all you got to do is be 10% better than everybody else.
Yeah.
And it's the same with bird hunting. Walk another half mile. Park on the other side of the wildlife area, like you said. Whatever it is, go to the places other people won't go. There's a particular trout stream that I love that has now been loved to death.
Oh.
Still very good, but it's not as good as it was. And by the way, next month it will show up in Fly Fisherman magazine because I wrote the story. But
Scott.
well, it's beyond hope. That's why I did it, because I did a TV show on it 15 years ago.
Oh boy.
But anyway, so I'll watch, you go there now and it's like the Orvis catalog photo shoot. Everybody's there and they're all styling.
Well, it's just like all these people from Portland.
Yeah.
We know where they go hunt chukar,
Yeah.
right? And then everybody complains. I mean, I just listened to a podcast about a guy complaining. Well, he was kind of not complaining, but kind of complaining that every whole season long, every time he hunted this area, there was other vehicles there. Well, yeah, you're hunting the spot for chukar most accessible from the biggest population center in the whole state.
I know that spot.
Instead of you being frustrated for 2 or 3 hours while you're hunting, why not go 2 or 3 hours further away in your car and then get into good bird hunting?
Yeah.
Well, I know gas is expensive though, so maybe that's the problem.
No, it's not. If you're worried about money, you're not a bird hunter.
Yeah, that's for sure.
If you do the
I saw
math,
my W-2
Yeah,
and I was like,
exactly.
where did all that go?
So I want to finish
I
that
still
story
live
about
like
that.
I got no
I want to
money.
finish that story about that river. So I show up to this river, and I think, geez, there's 9 guys in that stretch. But if I watch them for a couple of minutes, they'll miss half the spots.
Yeah.
I'm going to come in right behind them. And the same holds true with bird hunting. There are people who they'll go, and when Felt and I were hunting that place, we rode on bikes. We did mountain bike up to the top of that place. Same thing. Most people will walk 2 miles,
Right.
maybe 3 miles. If we ride 4 miles, we're in virgin territory.
You know what? This is a tip for all the people that hunt the put and take areas in Wisconsin, Illinois, Pennsylvania, New York. Just watch the loop that every person takes with their out of shape dogs. Just sit in the parking lot and watch. They all take the same loop, right?
Yeah.
What you need to do is just go outside of that loop a little bit, hit the thicker stuff, watch where the birds all fly to, and go hit that stuff and go get your 2 pheasant a day limit and enjoy life.
I love it.
That's all you need to do.
You know, we could go on and on and on, and we will at another point in time because you're going to come back. I swear to God, you're coming back. That's Ben Warner. I'm Scott Linden. This is the Upland Nation podcast. I'm going to cut you loose to pour us each another one while I finish up the podcast with a couple announcements. First, Sean Couch. Sean, thank you for being such a loyal and true listener and Facebook friend. Sean has the best summary of this past season. He says, walking back to the pickup after a leg-killing chukar hunt. Yeah, sound familiar, Ben? When I look at the GPS to learn my dog is on point, back at the top of the hill, it almost made a grown man cry. Any left for me, Ben? Thanks. Yeah, I feel your pain. No, that's the end of it. So we're SOL. All right. But anyway, so yeah, Sean, way to go. I bet you went all the way up there, and I bet you killed that bird too. So congratulations. Hey, the Upland Nation podcast is brought to you in part by Dr. Tim's Natural Performance Dog Food. I got a homework assignment for you. Go to drtims.com. Read up on why your dog needs a quality mix of diverse proteins from the air, the sea, and land. That sounds like a Marine slogan, right? Yep. Staff Sergeant Ben Warner. Yeah. He's Army. They're Marines. Anyway, find out all about why that's so important. Get free delivery, 30% off your first order. Just use the code Upland Nation at DRTIMS. Got a question for you? I won't answer it. How'd you shoot last season? You know, gun fit shooting methods and other factors affect whether your dog gives you the stink eye or not. Got that a lot this year. But I fixed it, I think. But if I haven't, I'm going back to Mid-Valley Clays and Shooting School. It's the perfect place for me and my buddy Tom, you know Tom, to sharpen our shooting game. We're taking a lesson from Dave Fiedler. You know Dave, he was on the podcast last week. He's going to make me a master shooter. He promised. Drop in Wednesday through Sunday, 10 to 5. Shoot any of the games. They got skeet, traps, sporting clays, 5-stand, and FETASC. Learn more at midvalleyclays.com. All right, we're on the letter C in the Upland Nation Glossary. And I'm going to use a word that, yeah, if you don't have birds, you don't know this word, but you should have birds. That's the number one rule. Ben and I talked about it while we were running 4 dogs at the same time. My God. Attaching a piece of cardboard to a bird's leg. It's called carding. Now, sometimes we use other stuff. A lot of guys will use a piece of garden hose. But, you know, the whole idea is if you put something on your, training pigeon's leg that slows their flight down. Do you do that?
No, because mine always make it home.
Yeah, you're a lucky guy. Mine always get caught in the tree next door. But it'll slow down or shorten the flight of your training bird so you can use it in training steadiness. And we're going to do a lot of that this year. I'm going to put a really heavy piece of garden hose on my dog's birds. My dog's birds. I own them. He just thinks he owns them. But so that they'll fly, 20, 30 yards and then drop, because that's what we're working on, steadiness to wing shot and fall.
There we go.
And you know all about that. That's going to be your bugaboo this summer.
No, she's good on that. It's going to be about the honoring another dog on point.
Well, carding is what we're going to do with our dogs, with me and Flick this year. So there's your Upland Nation Glossary Word of the Week. And on that note, I want to thank everybody for listening, but particularly I want to thank my friend Ben Warner for being a part of the Upland Nation podcast this week. It's all brought to you by findbirdhuntingspots.com. Hey, this week the new article is Keep It Simple, Scott. Methods to communicate with your dog in ways that don't confuse your dog. Now, I'm always confused, but maybe not my dog. Anyway, it's all at findbirdhuntingspots.com. Thank you to those who've left ratings or reviews. If you're on Apple Podcasts in particular, that's how you share this podcast. Give me whatever rating you think, but I hope it's 5 stars. Thank you, Gil M3, for your recent 5-star rating. I'll leave you with this. I don't know who said it because it's anonymous on the website I use, but it is so true. No home decor is complete without dog hair. Yeah, if you don't believe that, then you're not really one of us, are you? Hey, I'm Scott Linden. This is the Upland Nation Podcast. Thank you for listening. See you at the range.